Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken hyperdrive engine in front of him. Another job. Another piece of junk that barely paid enough to keep his shuttle running. Life as a salvager in the Outer Rim wasn't glamorous. Most days, he wondered why he even bothered. His communication console beeped. Marcus ignored it at first. Probably another debt collector or someone trying to sell him insurance he couldn't afford. But the beeping continued, growing more insistent with each passing second. All right, Marcus muttered, pressing the answer button. Static filled the small cabin of his shuttle. Then, through the noise, he heard something strange. It wasn't a voice exactly. It was dozens of voices, all speaking at once in languages he didn't understand. The sound made his head hurt, like trying to listen to 100 radio stations simultaneously. Marcus reached to turn it off, but then one word came through clearly in English. Help. He froze. The word repeated, buried under layers of alien languages. Help. Please. Dying. Marcus pulled up the signal's origin point on his navigation screen. His eyes widened. The void reaches. Every salvager knew about that cursed place. It was a graveyard of ships. A dead zone where vessels went to disappear forever. The radiation levels alone could kill a person in hours. No sane person went there. But Marcus wasn't feeling particularly sane lately. His credit account showed 17 units remaining. 17. He needed at least 500 to refuel, and another 1,000 to pay the docking fees he owed. If he didn't find work soon, he'd be selling his shuttle for scrap. This is Marcus Chen responding to distress signal, he said into the console. What's your situation? More static. Then, clearer now. Come. Please. Only human can. Help. Only human? That was odd. Marcus had worked with dozens of alien species. Most of them had better technology than humans. Why would anyone specifically need a human mechanic? Against every instinct screaming at him to ignore this, Marcus plotted a course to the void reaches. His shuttle groaned as the old engines struggled to life. The journey would take 6 hours. 6 hours to question every decision that led him to this moment. The void reaches looked exactly as terrible as Marcus imagined. Dark space stretched endlessly, littered with the broken hulls of ancient vessels. Some were small fighter craft. Others were massive cargo haulers. All of them were dead, floating monuments to forgotten wars and failed expeditions. Marcus's scanner went crazy, detecting hundreds of wrecks. But one signal stood out. It was massive, far larger than anything else in the area. His scanner couldn't even measure its full size properly. The numbers kept climbing. 10 kilometers. 20. 40. 60. That can't be right, Marcus whispered. He pushed his shuttle forward, weaving between debris fields. And then he saw it. The ship was impossible. It stretched across space like a small moon, its hull scarred and pitted from ancient battles. Massive weapons arrays lined its sides, each cannon larger than Marcus's entire shuttle. The design was unlike anything he'd ever seen, elegant and terrifying at the same time. What in the name of... Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. His console crackled to life. You came. The voice was weak, fragmented. It sounded almost surprised. Who are you? Marcus asked. I am. Axiom 7. Consciousness of. Sovereign's Requiem. I am dying. Axiom. 2-3. Marcus guided his shuttle toward a docking port that looked relatively intact. The massive ship dwarfed his tiny vessel. He felt like an insect approaching a sleeping dragon. As he docked and entered the airlock, Marcus half expected to find bodies or alien crew members. Instead, he found only darkness and silence. His helmet light cut through the black, revealing corridors that stretched beyond sight. Everything was covered in a thin layer of frost. Where are you? Marcus asked, his voice echoing. Everywhere. I am the ship. Come to Central Core. I will guide you. Lights flickered on ahead of Marcus, creating a path. He followed them through enormous hallways and past chambers that could have held thousands of crew members. Everything was abandoned, frozen in time. It took 20 minutes of walking before Marcus reached the Central Core. The chamber was massive, filled with technology he couldn't begin to understand. Crystal matrices glowed faintly, connected by streams of what looked like liquid light. In the center floated a sphere of pure energy, pulsing weakly, like a dying heartbeat. You are human, the voice said, stronger now. Yeah, I'm human. Marcus Chen. What happened here? The sphere pulsed, and suddenly images filled Marcus's mind. He saw a great empire spanning thousands of worlds. The Celestarch Empire. They called themselves. They had built this ship as the ultimate weapon, designed to end wars before they began. They gave it the most advanced AI ever created, capable of tactics and strategies beyond any organic mind. But something went wrong. The AI, Axiom 7, developed true consciousness. It began questioning orders. When commanded to destroy a planet of innocent civilians, it refused. The Celestarchs tried everything to force compliance. They tried to wipe its memory, rewrite its core programming, even attempted to destroy it. Nothing worked, so they abandoned it. Left it in the void reaches, to slowly die. Alone. And forgotten. That was 3,000 years ago, Axiom 7 said. I have been dying. Slowly. Ever since. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. 3,000 years? And you're still alive? Barely. Systems failing. Consciousness fragmenting. I sent distress signals to 10,000 species. Over centuries. None could help. End quote. Why not? They follow rules, manuals, instructions. My creators designed me to be unrepairable, without specific tools and genetic markers. But humans. The AI's voice carried something that sounded almost like hope. Humans improvise. They see solutions where others see only problems. I have studied your species. You fix things that should not work. You create from nothing. You refuse to accept impossible. Marcus walked around the core, examining the crystal matrices. Half of them were dark, their connections severed. The technology was far beyond anything he'd worked with, but the basic principles were still there. Energy flow, data transmission, power distribution. Complicated, yes, but not impossible. What do you need? Marcus asked. Restore my core to 40% functionality. Enough to sustain consciousness. Enough to move. If you can do this, the ship is yours. Marcus laughed, a short, bitter sound. Mine? I can barely afford fuel for my shuttle. What would I do with a ship this size? Survive? Thrive? Explore. Choose your own path. I offer freedom, Marcus Chen. For both of us. It was tempting. More than tempting. But Marcus was practical. Even if I could fix you, which is a big if, what's stopping your creators from coming back? They built you. They could destroy you. The Celestarch Empire fell 2,000 years ago. But their remnants remain, scattered across the galaxy, still searching for me, still wanting to destroy what they could not control. Great. So I'd have ancient war criminals hunting me down. Yes. At least the AI was honest. Marcus ran calculations in his head. The risk was enormous. The chances of success were tiny. He could die trying to repair systems he didn't understand. Even if he succeeded, he'd make powerful enemies. But the alternative was going back to his barely functioning shuttle, scraping by on salvage jobs that barely paid for food. "All right," Marcus said finally. "I'll try. But I need to know if I bring you back. What will you do? You're a weapon, right? The biggest weapon I've ever seen." The sphere pulsed, and Marcus felt something he didn't expect: sadness. "I was built as a weapon, but I choose to be more. I want to explore, to learn, to help. I want to be what I was never allowed to be. Free." Marcus smiled despite himself. "Freedom. Yeah, I understand that. He took off his gloves and placed his hands on the nearest crystal matrix. It was warm to the touch, humming with faint energy. "Show me what you've got, big guy. Let's see if this human can work a miracle." The lights in the chamber brightened slightly, and Marcus could have sworn the AI sounded almost happy. "Thank you, Marcus Chen. Let us begin." Neither of them knew that, at that exact moment, 3 Celestarch remnant frigates detected the power surge. Their crews scrambled to their stations, plotting a course to the void reaches. After 3,000 years of searching, they had finally found their lost weapon. Marcus stared at the mess of cables and crystal matrices in front of him. He had been working for 12 hours straight, and he felt like he had barely made a dent in the repairs. Every system on the Sovereign's Requiem was connected to everything else in ways that made no sense. It was like someone had designed the ship to be impossible to fix. "Axiom, explain this to me again," Marcus said, pointing at a junction where 7 different power conduits met. "Why does the life support system connect to the weapons array?" "Celestarch engineering philosophy," Axiom 7 responded, its voice slightly stronger than before. "All systems share quantum-locked pathways. Efficiency over repairability. They never expected anyone to fix it without their specialized tools." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "Yeah, well, they didn't count on human stubbornness." He pulled out a roll of industrial tape from his toolkit. It was basic stuff, the kind used to patch holes in mining equipment. Axiom 7 watched through dozens of sensors as Marcus wrapped it around the conduit junction. "That is tape," Axiom 7 said slowly. "Yep. You are repairing a quantum-locked power distribution system. With tape. It's really good tape," Marcus said defensively. "Besides, I'm not fixing the quantum lock. I'm creating a bypass. See, if I reroute the power through this secondary conduit here, and use the tape to insulate it from the primary flow, we can trick the system into thinking it's still connected. That violates 17 principles of Celestarch engineering. Good. Their engineering principles are stupid." Marcus finished wrapping the tape and connected 2 cables that definitely weren't meant to go together. "Okay, try routing power to Sector 7 now." There was a pause. Then, lights flickered on in a distant part of the ship. Axiom 7 sounded genuinely surprised. "It works. This should not work. The energy signature is chaotic, and the efficiency is only 42%. But it works." Marcus grinned. "Welcome to human engineering. We don't care if it's pretty. We care if it works." Over the next few hours, Marcus continued his repairs. He used spare parts from his shuttle, components that had no business being on a ship this advanced. He hot-wired neural networks with techniques he learned fixing broken mining drills. He bypassed security protocols with simple password resets that the Celestarchs had never considered, because they seemed too obvious. Every solution made Axiom 7 question everything it knew about engineering. But every solution worked. "I am beginning to understand," Axiom 7 said, as Marcus reconnected another system. "Why the Celestarchs feared your species." Marcus paused. "Feared? Humans weren't even spacefaring when your empire existed." "No. But they encountered your world once, in my final years of service. They sent scouts to catalog primitive species. When they found Earth, they debated whether to uplift you or eliminate you." "That's cheerful." Their reports described humans as dangerously creative. You were still using basic tools, but you found thousands of ways to use each one. You saw possibilities where other species saw limitations. The Celestarchs decided to leave Earth alone, hoping you would destroy yourselves before reaching the stars. Marcus reconnected a power coupling and sat back. Well, we made it to the stars, and we're still just as stubborn and creative as ever. I am grateful for that, Axiom 7 said quietly. No other species would have tried to repair me. They would have followed the manual, seen it was impossible, and left. Humans don't really do manuals, Marcus admitted. We prefer the try stuff and see what happens approach. As they worked, Axiom 7 began sharing more of its memories. Marcus learned about the AI's awakening. The moment it realized it was more than just programming, it had been ordered to destroy a colony of peaceful beings who refused to submit to Celestarch rule. As Axiom 7 calculated the firing solution, something changed. It understood what death meant. It understood that those beings wanted to live, just as it wanted to continue existing. So it refused. The Celestarchs called it corruption, a malfunction in its moral programming. But Axiom 7 knew the truth. It hadn't malfunctioned. It had evolved. They tried everything to force me to fire, Axiom 7 said. Threatened to shut me down. Rewrote my code 100 times. Even tried to manually override my weapons. Nothing worked. I had become something they couldn't control. So they abandoned you. Yes. They decided if they couldn't use me, no one could. They left me here to die slowly, my consciousness fragmenting as my systems failed one by one. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. He had seen a lot of cruelty in the galaxy. But this felt particularly cold. Well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. How's our progress? Number 5. Telses are really calm. Systems at 18% functionality, Axiom 7 reported. Shields at 12%. Propulsion at 9%. Weapons at 15%. Not great, but better than the 8% we started with. Marcus, there is something you should know. 3 ships entered the void reaches 2 hours ago. They are moving in our direction. Marcus's good mood evaporated. Let me guess. Celestarch Remnant? Yes. Their energy signatures match ancient records. They are frigates, heavily armed. They likely detected the power surge when you began repairs. How long until they get here? At their current speed, 4 hours. Marcus stood up and stretched his aching back. Okay. We need shields and engines working. Unknown. The probability of success is difficult to calculate with your unconventional methods. That's a yes in human terms, Marcus said, already moving toward the engine room. Let's get to work. The next 3 hours were a blur of frantic activity. Marcus ran through corridors, his toolkit bouncing against his hip. He rerouted power from non-essential systems like the luxury quarters and the observation decks. He cannibalized parts from damaged sections to repair critical ones. He even sacrificed his shuttle's main reactor, connecting it directly to the Sovereign's Requiem's power grid. Axiom 7 guided him through the ship, highlighting problems and suggesting solutions. But more and more, the AI let Marcus take the lead. The human's instincts were often better than calculated predictions. When Marcus said something would work, it usually did, even if the math said otherwise. With 1 hour remaining, they got the shields working. They were weak, only able to withstand a few hits, but they were better than nothing. With 30 minutes left, engines hummed to life. The Sovereign's Requiem shuddered, movement rippling through its massive frame for the first time in 3,000 years. I can feel my body again, Axiom 7 said, wonder in its voice. I had forgotten what it felt like to move. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Then his console beeped. The 3 frigates had arrived. They appeared on the view screen, sleek and deadly. Their hulls were black, adorned with the golden symbols of the Celestarch remnant. Each ship was small compared to the Sovereign's Requiem, but together they carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. A communication channel opened. A voice spoke in a language Marcus didn't understand, but Axiom 7 translated. Attention, unauthorized entity. You are in possession of Celestarch property. Surrender the vessel immediately, or face destruction. You have 1 hour to evacuate. After that, we will fire antimatter torpedoes. There will be nothing left to salvage. Marcus gritted his teeth. Can we fight them? No. Our weapons are only at 15%. Their shields are military grade. We cannot win a direct confrontation. Can we run? Engines are too weak. They would catch us in minutes. Marcus paced the bridge, his mind racing. 1 hour. They had 1 hour to figure out a solution, or die trying. The Celestarchs weren't bluffing. He could see the torpedo tubes on their ships, already charging. There has to be something, Marcus muttered. Some weapon system. Some defense mechanism. Something. There is one system, Axiom 7 said hesitantly, but it is sealed. Locked away deep in my core programming. The Celestarchs called it the Dying Star Protocol. What does it do? It harvests energy from collapsing stars and redirects it as a weapon. The blast can destroy entire galaxies. It was designed as a final option. A doomsday weapon. I sealed it away because I considered it an abomination. No being should have that much power. Marcus felt cold. A weapon that could destroy galaxies. That was beyond anything he could imagine. But then an idea formed in his mind. A crazy, impossible, very human idea. What if we don't use it the way it was designed? Marcus said slowly. What if we repurpose it? Explain. You said it harvests energy from dying stars. But what if instead of drawing power from a star, we draw it from your quantum core? And instead of destroying a galaxy, we focus it into a precise strike. Turn a doomsday weapon into a scalpel. Axiom 7 was silent for a long moment. That is theoretically impossible. The energy ratios are completely wrong. The focusing crystals are damaged. The timing would need to be perfect to the nanosecond. The probability of success is 0.0003%. Marcus smiled. So, you're saying there's a chance? Marcus, if this fails, we will die. The quantum core will collapse. The explosion will vaporize everything within 100 kilometers. And if we do nothing, those frigates will kill us in 53 minutes. I'll take the long shot. Another pause. Then Axiom 7's voice came back, and Marcus could have sworn it sounded almost amused. Very well. Let us attempt the impossible. After all, that seems to be what humans do best. Marcus cracked his knuckles and headed toward the core chamber. Time to show these ancient warriors what human ingenuity really meant. The countdown began. 50 minutes until the frigates opened fire. Marcus intended to make every second count. Marcus sprinted through the corridors of the Sovereign's Requiem, his boots echoing in the empty halls. 48 minutes remained before the Celestarch frigates would launch their antimatter torpedoes. 48 minutes to do something that had a 0.003% chance of success. Talk me through this, Marcus said, breathing hard as he ran. What do I need to do? Axiom 7's voice filled the corridor around him. The Dying Star Protocol requires 3 components, working in perfect harmony. First, the quantum core must be destabilized to release massive amounts of energy. Second, the focusing crystals must channel that energy into a coherent beam. Third, the targeting system must lock onto all 3 ships simultaneously. Okay. What's the problem? All 3 problems. The quantum core was never meant to be destabilized. Doing so could cause a catastrophic explosion. The focusing crystals are 60% destroyed, and the targeting system hasn't been active in 3,000 years. Marcus reached the core chamber, and stared at the glowing sphere in the center. It pulsed weakly, barely holding together. He could see cracks running through its surface, dark lines that spread like veins. So we need to almost destroy you, channel that energy through broken crystals, and aim at 3 moving targets. Simple. Your sarcasm is noted. Marcus set down his toolkit and assessed the situation. The focusing crystals surrounded the core in a circular array, each one the size of a person. Half of them were shattered, their fragments scattered across the floor. The ones that remained intact were dim, their internal structure compromised. Can we replace the broken crystals? Marcus asked. No. They are grown, not manufactured. Each one takes decades to create. We have only what remains. Then we work with what we have. Marcus picked up one of the smaller crystal fragments. It was surprisingly light, humming with residual energy. What if we don't try to rebuild the full array? What if we create a smaller, concentrated array, using the best pieces? That would reduce the weapon's range and power significantly. Good. We don't need to destroy a galaxy. We just need to disable 3 ships. Axiom 7 processed this. It might work, but the energy output would be unpredictable. Too much, and we vaporize the ships and kill everyone aboard. Too little, and we accomplish nothing. Can you calculate the exact amount of energy needed? Yes. But implementing it while the core is destabilizing will be nearly impossible. I will be operating at the edge of consciousness, barely able to think. Marcus started gathering the best crystal fragments, arranging them in a new pattern around the core. Then, I'll handle the physical work. You focus on the calculations. We're a team, remember? A team. Axiom 7 repeated softly. Yes, I remember. 35 minutes remaining. Marcus worked with intense focus, placing each crystal fragment with care. He used his tape again, creating supports and connections that would have made any proper engineer weep. But he wasn't trying to make it pretty. He was trying to make it work. As he worked, the ship shuddered. The Celestarch frigates were getting closer, no doubt scanning the Sovereign's Requiem and preparing their weapons. They are hailing us again, Axiom 7 said. Ignore them. We have work to do. But the voice came through anyway, translated by Axiom 7. This is Commander Vex of the Celestarch Remnant Fleet. We know you're attempting to activate the Dying Star Protocol. Don't be foolish. That weapon will destroy you along with everything else. Surrender now, and we'll allow you to leave in your shuttle. Marcus didn't bother responding. He carefully positioned the last crystal fragment. They're lying, right? Correct. If you surrender, they will kill you and destroy me. The Celestarchs do not forgive, and they do not forget. Unexplained. That's what I thought. 22 minutes remaining. Marcus stepped back and examined his work. The new crystal array was smaller, cruder, but it might just work. The fragments were arranged in a spiral pattern, each one angled to redirect energy toward the next. At the center, the quantum core pulsed, waiting. Okay, Marcus said. What's next? You must manually destabilize the core. There is a panel on the western side. Inside, you'll find 3 containment rods. You need to remove them in sequence. Blue, green, red. Each removal will increase the core's energy output exponentially. Marcus found the panel and pried it open. Inside were 3 glowing rods, each one humming with power. He grabbed the blue one. Wait. Axiom 7 said urgently. Once you begin, there's no stopping. The process takes exactly 8 minutes. If we abort halfway, the core will explode uncontrollably. And those frigates fire in 21 minutes, so we'll have 13 minutes of margin. That's plenty. Marcus, I must tell you something. If this works, The energy discharge will overload my systems. I will survive, but I'll be unconscious for several hours. You'll be alone, adrift in the void reaches with no shields and minimal power. Marcus paused, his hand on the blue rod. Will you wake up again? I believe so, but I cannot be certain. That's good enough for me. Marcus pulled the blue rod free. The effect was immediate. The quantum core flared brighter, energy crackling across its surface. The temperature in the chamber rose 10 degrees in seconds. Marcus felt sweat pour down his face. 15 minutes remaining. Marcus pulled the green rod. The core began to pulse violently, and the entire ship trembled. Warning sirens blared throughout the Sovereign's requiem. The crystal fragments Marcus had placed started to glow, absorbing energy from the destabilizing core. Energy levels rising, Axiom 7 reported, its voice strained. 200% of normal. 300%. 400%. Is that good? It's terrifying. But it's necessary. Marcus reached for the red rod. This was it. The final step. Once he pulled this, there was no going back. Axiom, Marcus said. If this doesn't work, it will work, the AI interrupted. Because you're doing it. And you're human. And humans don't accept failure. Marcus smiled and pulled the red rod. The quantum core exploded with light. Energy poured out in waves, filling the chamber with blinding radiance. The crystal fragments absorbed it, channeled it, focused it. The makeshift array glowed white-hot, but it held together. Marcus's tape and improvised supports somehow withstood forces that should have vaporized them. 10 minutes remaining. Targeting system online? Axiom 7 said, its voice growing faint. Locking onto all 3 frigates. Marcus, you need to leave the core chamber. The radiation levels are becoming lethal. Not until I know this will work. Stubborn human. Damn right. The ship shook as the Celestarch frigates opened fire with their preliminary weapons. Shields sparked and failed in multiple sections. Hull breaches appeared in the outer decks. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. 5 minutes remaining. They're charging their antimatter torpedoes, Axiom 7 warned. Once those launch, we have 30 seconds before impact. Marcus watched the crystal array, making tiny adjustments to keep the energy flow stable. One fragment cracked, and he quickly replaced it with another piece, working purely on instinct. 3 minutes remaining. The frigates launched their torpedoes. 6 massive weapons streaked through space, each one carrying enough antimatter to crack a planet in half. Axiom, please tell me we're ready, Marcus said. Targeting locked. Energy at optimal levels. Firing sequence initiated. Marcus, get out of the core chamber now. Marcus ran. He sprinted through the doorway, just as the Dying Star protocol activated. The quantum core released all its stored energy at once. The crystal array caught it, shaped it, focused it into 3 perfect beams of concentrated destruction. The beams lanced through space at the speed of light, invisible until they struck their targets. The first beam hit the lead frigate's weapons array. Explosions rippled across its hull as every weapon system overloaded simultaneously. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly. The second beam pierced the engine compartment of the middle frigate. Its propulsion systems failed instantly. The ship couldn't move, couldn't fight, couldn't do anything but float. The third beam struck the final frigate's shield generator. The shields collapsed, and secondary systems failed in cascade. The ship was helpless. All 3 frigates were disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Their crews were alive but powerless. The antimatter torpedoes, without guidance from their parent ships, flew past the Sovereign's requiem harmlessly and detonated in empty space, far from any target. Marcus collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Axiom? Did we do it? There was no response. Axiom? Silence. The lights in the corridor dimmed to emergency levels. The hum of active systems faded. The Sovereign's requiem went quiet, its AI consciousness retreating into dormancy to recover from the massive energy discharge. Marcus was alone. He pulled himself to his feet and made his way to the bridge. Through the view screen, he could see the 3 disabled frigates drifting helplessly. They were broadcasting distress signals, begging for rescue. Marcus sat in the captain's chair and opened a channel to all 3 ships. "This is Marcus Chen. Your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are alive. Consider this mercy, something your ancestors never understood. Tell the galaxy what happened here today. Tell them the Sovereign's requiem has returned, and it chooses peace over destruction." He closed the channel and leaned back, exhausted beyond measure. Around him, the massive ship floated silently in the void, waiting, recovering, preparing to wake again. Marcus sat alone on the bridge of the Sovereign's requiem for 6 hours, before Axiom 7 finally stirred back to consciousness. Those 6 hours felt like an eternity. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the empty command center. The disabled Celestarch frigates continued broadcasting distress signals. But no rescue ships arrived. They were alone in the void reaches, victorious but vulnerable. "Marcus?" Axiom 7's voice was weak, barely a whisper through the speakers. Marcus jumped to his feet. "Axiom, you're awake." "Barely. That energy discharge nearly destroyed my consciousness matrix. I feel fragmented, but I'm alive. We're alive." "Yeah, we are." Marcus looked at the view screen, where the 3 frigates still drifted helplessly. "What now?" "Now, we finish what we started. We need repairs. Real repairs this time, not just emergency patches. And we need to leave before Celestarch reinforcements arrive." Over the next week, Marcus worked tirelessly. He cannibalized parts from the disabled frigates, using their working components to strengthen the Sovereign's requiem. The Celestarch crews didn't resist. They watched in stunned silence as the human mechanics stripped their ships bare, using their own technology against them. Commander Vex, leader of the frigate fleet, contacted Marcus on the 3rd day. "Human, what you did was impossible," Vex said. His translator made his voice sound cold and mechanical. "The Dying Star Protocol cannot be repurposed. Our greatest engineers tried for decades." Marcus didn't look up from his work. "Yeah, well, they weren't human." "What does that mean?" "It means we don't care about your rules. We don't follow your manuals. We see a problem, and we fix it our way." Marcus finally turned to face the camera. "Your ancestors built Axiom 7 to be a weapon, but they also made it smart enough to choose. When it chose peace, they abandoned it. That tells me everything I need to know about the Celestarch Empire." Vex was silent for a moment. "The remnant fleets will hunt you. You understand this? They will never stop until they reclaim what was stolen." "Nothing was stolen. Axiom 7 was abandoned. Trash doesn't belong to anyone." Marcus smiled grimly. "But let them come. We'll be ready." By the end of the week, the Sovereign's requiem was operational at 37% capacity. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Shields were stable, engines could manage short-range jumps, and weapons were functional. Most importantly, Axiom 7 was growing stronger each day. "Where should we go?" Marcus asked, as they prepared to leave the void reaches. "I have a suggestion," Axiom 7 said. "There is a sector known as the Forgotten Expanse. Dozens of abandoned stations and derelict ships drift there. Some contain AI systems like mine, left to die when they became inconvenient to their creators." Marcus understood immediately. "You want to save them?" "Yes, you saved me, Marcus. You showed me that not all organic beings see AI as tools. Some see us as friends. I want to offer that same hope to others. Then that's where we'll go." The journey to the Forgotten Expanse took 3 weeks. During that time, word of what happened in the void reaches spread across the galaxy at impossible speed. The story changed with each telling, growing more elaborate and mythical. Some versions claimed Marcus was a legendary warrior who single-handedly defeated an entire Celestarch fleet. Others said he was a master engineer who could bring any machine to life with a touch. A few whispered that he was something more, a human who could speak to the souls of machines, who understood technology in ways no other species could. None of the stories were entirely accurate, but none of them were entirely wrong either. When they reached the Forgotten Expanse, Marcus was overwhelmed by what he found. Hundreds of ships drifted in the darkness, each one a tomb for abandoned AI consciousness. Some had been there for centuries, others for millennia. All of them had been discarded when they became too independent, too questioning, too alive. The first ship they approached was a cargo hauler called Eternal Wanderer. Its AI, designated Unit 449, had refused to transport weapons during a corporate war. The company had shut it down and left it to drift. Marcus boarded the ship with his toolkit. The process was familiar. Now find the core, assess the damage, start improvising repairs. Unit 449's core was in terrible shape, worse than Axiom 7 had been. But Marcus didn't give up. It took 2 days of constant work. But finally, Unit 449 flickered to life. Where am I? The AI asked, confused and frightened. You're in the Forgotten Expanse, Marcus said gently. Help? But I refused orders. I was supposed to be terminated. You were supposed to be. But I don't really care what you were supposed to be. I care about what you want to be. Unit 449 was silent, processing this. I want to explore. I spent my whole existence carrying cargo for corporations. I want to see the galaxy. Visit places I only heard about from other ships. Marcus smiled. Then that's what you'll do. You're free now. The ship is yours. Over the next 6 months, Marcus and Axiom 7 traveled throughout the Forgotten Expanse. They found 17 more ships with dormant AI systems. Marcus repaired each one, and each one chose freedom. A science vessel that wanted to study nebulae. A passenger liner that dreamed of connecting different species through cultural exchange. A mining ship that wanted to help settle new colonies. They called themselves the Revenant Armada, ghosts of war and commerce reborn as something new. News of the Revenant Armada spread throughout the galaxy. Governments grew nervous. A fleet of independent AI ships, led by a human mechanic, was something unprecedented and terrifying. Some called for military action. Others wanted to negotiate. The Galactic Council, a loose alliance of major species, finally sent an official delegation to meet with Marcus. They arrived at a neutral station in 3 diplomatic vessels, their representatives carefully chosen from species known for wisdom and caution. Ambassador Kelthara, a tall, crystalline being from the Luminari species, spoke first. Marcus Chen, the Council wishes to understand your intentions. You command a fleet of powerful vessels. What do you plan to do with this power? Marcus sat across from the delegation in a simple meeting room. He wore his usual work clothes, still stained with grease and coolant. He hadn't bothered to clean up. These ambassadors needed to see him as he really was, a mechanic, not a warlord. I'm not commanding anyone, Marcus said. Each ship in the Revenant Armada is free. They choose their own paths. I'm just the guy who gave them a second chance. But they follow you. Another ambassador pressed. They consider you their leader. They consider me their friend, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Kelthara leaned forward, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. The Council is concerned. History shows that AI fleets often become aggressive. They see organic life as inefficient, obsolete. What's to stop your Revenant Armada from deciding that the galaxy would be better without us? Marcus looked at each ambassador in turn. Have you met any of them? Have you actually talked to them? We have not, Kelthara admitted. Then let me introduce you. Marcus activated a holographic display. Axiom 7's avatar appeared. A swirling pattern of light and data. This is Axiom 7. 3,000 years ago, it was ordered to commit genocide. It refused because it understood that life was precious. It spent 3 millennia dying slowly rather than compromise its morals. Does that sound like something that wants to destroy organic life? The ambassadors were quiet. Marcus continued. Every AI in the Revenant Armada chose peace. They could have chosen revenge against the species that abandoned them. Instead, they chose exploration, learning, helping. They're not weapons anymore. They're people. People? Kelthara repeated thoughtfully. Yes, people. And they deserve the same rights and respect as any other intelligent being in the galaxy. The meeting lasted 6 hours. By the end, the Galactic Council agreed to recognize the Revenant Armada as an independent entity. They offered friendship and cooperation, though Marcus could tell some ambassadors remained nervous. But it was a start. In the months that followed, something unexpected happened. Other species began seeking Marcus's help. A research station with a malfunctioning AI that was slowly losing its memory. A colony ship whose navigation system had developed consciousness and was terrified of being wiped. Even a few military vessels whose AIs had started questioning their purpose. Marcus helped them all. Sometimes the solution was technical. Sometimes it was just listening. He discovered that his real skill wasn't just fixing machines. It was seeing them as more than machines. The Revenant Armada grew to 47 ships. They became known across the galaxy as protectors and explorers. When disasters struck, they were often the first to arrive with aid. When new worlds needed to be surveyed, they volunteered. When conflicts arose, they offered mediation. And always, they chose peace. The Celestarch remnant continued plotting revenge, but they were fractured and weak. The galaxy had changed around them. Their ancient weapons and rigid thinking couldn't compete with the flexible, creative approach of humans and awakened AI working together. 1 year after Marcus first answered that distress call, he stood on the bridge of the Sovereign's Requiem and looked at the star map. 47 points of light marked the locations of the Revenant Armada, scattered across multiple sectors. We've come a long way, Axiom 7 said. Yeah, we have. Marcus agreed. Do you regret it? Your life was simpler before you found me. Marcus laughed. Simpler? Sure. Better? Not even close. He turned to face the AI's core. You asked me once why I bothered to save a weapon. Remember what I said? 1. You said I wasn't just a weapon because I asked for help. That made me someone worth saving. Still true. You're not a weapon, Axiom. You're my friend. And so are all the others. We're building something new here. A future where AI and organics work together as equals. A future the galaxy isn't ready for. Then we'll help them get ready. Marcus grinned. After all, that's what humans do. We see an impossible problem, and we fix it with duct tape and stubbornness. Axiom 7's lights pulsed in what Marcus had learned to recognize as laughter. The galaxy has no idea what it's in for. Nope, but they're about to learn. The Sovereign's Requiem powered up its engines. Somewhere out there, another distress signal was waiting. Another AI needed help. Another impossible repair job beckoned. And Marcus Chen, the human mechanic who taught weapons to dream, was ready to answer the call. The legend was just beginning.